Thank you.
Before going to start our session, I would like to introduce to our audience. Anchal is an accomplished technology leader with a robust background spanning Europe and Asia. A computer science engineer by training, she ignited her passion for problem solving at McKinsey and Company, where she specialized in digital transformations for Fortune 500 firms, optimizing process and delivering impactful uh, solutions that drive business growth and social benefit. As an early employee at Cloudflare in the Asia Pacific, Anchal played a virtual role in scaling the company from 5 to 500 employees and achieving fast revenue growth. She championized diversity, promoting young talent and enhancing female representation within tech teams. Her collaboration with government initiatives also foster local cybersecurity talent, contributing to a safer internet. In 2023, Anchal joined Tulip Interfaces as the managing director and head of sales of the Asia Pacific region, spearheading strategic pursuits and driving digital transformation projects across the global manufacturing companies and SMEs. Beyond her corporate responsibilities, Anchal is an active investor and advisor for startups seeking expansion in the Asian Pacific. This is a part of the Global Lighthouse Network at the World Economics Forum, focusing on smart manufacturing and emphasizing innovation and technology. She is also the co-founder of Career Compass, a career coaching and mentoring platform in Tier 2 and 3 cities in India. Anjali is currently the CEO and founder of the Agent Stack, building AI and ML powered high value solutions to complex problem in the manufacturing and energy industry with a focus on driving cybersecurity and sustainability, serving government and Fortune 500 companies. She is dedicated to mentoring and inspiring leaders and women in tech, leveraging her extensive experience to foster innovation and community contribution across the region. That was the wonderful bio, Anshul. The stage is
That's
all
a very
yours.
long, that's a very long introduction. But yeah, thank you. Hi. Hello. Hi, would you want me to go ahead with the session and a little bit discussion on this? Hi, is there anyone in the audience, host, before I go ahead? Hi, Melinda. Should I go ahead? And sorry, I'm not able to hear anyone. Okay, hi. Thanks for the ping. So, hi everyone who has dialed in. Thanks very much for the introduction, which was very long one. I am Anshul, based out of Singapore for last 1 decade. Prior to that, in Europe, across Scotland, Netherlands, and France, and before that in India. I have worked with organizations in different capacities as a consultant while at McKinsey, consulting customers on top line growth through tech and visionary stuff at that time around AI transformation in industries like BFSI, retail, energy, utilities. I've also worked with organizations like GE, Dow Chemicals, reporting to the regional heads, again driving top line improvement through better sales or launch of new products and new markets, and projects around pricing efficiencies. And the last decade, majority of it I've spent in cybersecurity, building Cloudflare in Asia Pacific, across all the countries here. Cloudflare has been a very, very innovative company. Started with a simple offering of improving the performance at web with CDN, and then eventually launching a lot of new products on security. So I've seen the journey of a company going from $1 billion to $65 billion, scaling through millions of users through different kind of offerings with self-serve and then enterprise, security, performance, launching Japan, Korea, China, which are very, very different geographies. My learning across the career has been that technology adoption is very tough when it comes to larger enterprises, having seen it throughout the spectrum, in outside as a consultant, inside a company, and then taking a tech product as SaaS. Agent Stack is trying to solve for all the gaps which I felt in my career working with enterprises, which is how do you first start with strategic roadmap on how a transformation would look like in steps. So you start with consulting, um, nail down on what are the 20% of use cases that will drive 80% impact. Then you think about what is the technology that you're bringing, and then actually doing the change management to drive adoption and outcomes. So start from consulting, leave at outcome, and do it in small steps rather than big bang digital transformations, because last several years that hasn't been successful, or in fact it has never been successful. It's very, very tough to drive full transformations with a big bang approach. um, the last 8 years I've spent um, selling tech, or rather taking tech into the traditional industries, which are manufacturing, across the board, whether it's pharma or FMCG, BFSI as well, telcos, oil and gas, mining, and took a lot of technology. The biggest gap that I see is in efficiency. The data doesn't exist, at least in Asia Pacific. It's equally high problem in other regions as well. Without data, you can't do anything with AI. So the biggest gap, which customers wanted to address, is that data is not there. Now there are a lot of tools and technologies that promise to bring the data, but bringing the right set of data and only what is relevant is equally important. So in my last stint, I was trying to digitize the frontline operations in manufacturing. And the biggest impact I saw there was that customers have already done things without being aware of the risk on data. So one of the largest med device companies that I was working with, they had a cyber attack. Their ERP and whole system was shut down for almost a month, and that was immense loss of productivity. And this is a company where their supply chain is always tight. So always more demand than supply, and shutting down for a month is an immense loss on revenue. Similarly, I have worked with the largest automotive companies where every year downtime happens for almost a month or 2 months, and that affects the supply. um, the challenge is that there is no one technology which is able to solve. A lot of companies come, the larger companies, they claim that they can solve for security in operations, but the reality is security in operations is very, very tough. Digitization in operations is also very, very tough, um, which predominantly leaves a very high scope of efficiency if done well. So if you look at what exists today, the traditional industries are not digitized at all. The scope of efficiency probably 20 to 40% at ease if done well. um, what are the biggest efficiencies is actually on supply chain. So over the last several years, I've done a lot of use cases on what can be digitized, the maximum impact which any customer can get is actually on the supply chain. Having said that, that's also the toughest thing. So what has been challenging in supply chain is the just the pure visibility of tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 vendors, what they are doing, which brings in the complexity into compliances, whether that's KYC, ESG, ES, the whole ESG spectrum, which is your climate risk, land and labor risk, nature risk, not knowing what the vendors in the tiered supply chain are doing. And then, of course, cybersecurity. So, one of the recent big attack which happened on JLR was supply chain attack, which actually caused a downturn of almost 2 months, significant revenue down, and also, of course, the impact of credibility because the people don't get paid in time. It affects the entire supply chain, and they probably have more than 10,000 suppliers. So that's like one of the very common threat that is being seen across the board, which is in critical infrastructure, either the operations or the supply chain. It's the same. Singapore government recently also declared that they have had massive attacks on their critical infrastructure, on the telcos. The four largest telcos here are going through an attacks in several days. The threats are being mitigated well. No data compromised, but we have all heard about, the aviation sector, the energy sector, utilities, all are going through massive attacks. And of course, what's happening in the war is a whole different scenario. So where um, I see the maximum impact and where we are trying to help customers. So, for example, AI transformation of utilities, which has a large potential on efficiency improvement. Just the statistics around, India, where we started working, is almost 50-60% of the electricity get lost in the distribution, which can be majorly solved when AI comes in and you're able to track, where it is getting lost. But in order to track that, you have to put sensors into each of the transformers, get the data from the sensors, and then basically get the data from GIS, and then run AI on top of it. When you do that, it brings in the risk of, again, IoT getting attacked. So how do you solve for it? Put cybersecurity by design, which is the by default that is coming into regulations in Europe and now in Asia Pacific, on how do you actually introduce cybersecurity by design. What is by design is that your OT gets air gapped, which blocks any threats to come in if you are connecting your hardware and software remotely, monitored, and basically doesn't get attacked. If that doesn't happen, there is a lot of efficiency that can be achieved in the supply chain. uh, to execute this is much tougher than the way I describe it. However, there are hardware and software technologies in cybersecurity or data visibility, which exists, which gives full visibility into what the assets are, where the assets are being deployed, what is the posture look like, and then limiting the access to the right set of users. So one of the case study on one of the partner that we have is working with airport SATs, which actually runs the whole meal delivery at the airports and the airlines. How do you achieve supply chain efficiency in that? Everybody wants to automate it. Everybody wants to put robots, to do the work there, so that it's lesser cost and it's faster and it's better. And the fresh meals are being served. The risk it puts is that as soon as you do it autonomous, it creates a threat of, again, cyber attacks. So three things that can be done there, which we've been doing, is monitor firstly, where get the full visibility on where these assets are. Secondly, what is the security posture, data visibility on each of the asset. And third, how do you actually limit the remote access to a certain set of users? So for example, the robots could be from 5 different companies, Mitsubishi, Yokogawa, etc., etc. how do you give the access of certain asset to just that company so that you don't lose, you don't basically give wrong access and then put the asset at risk, which predominantly comes to zero trust access. So if I look at the entire chain, in order to drive sustainability, a lot of sustainability talk has been about ESG reporting, auditing, which doesn't impact anything, and hence a lot of greenwashing has happened. But practically, to bring sustainability, the fastest way, or rather the more impactful way, is to target the industries which creates um, most climate risk, which is the traditional industries like real estate, manufacturing. Within that, what is the highest impact use cases or processes that can drive an impact? That is reducing waste. So if the inventory becomes zero, which is the dream of every company, that it's coming and going, then you reduce the waste. um, but in order to reduce the waste, what is needed is AI can drive significant impact. There are a lot of AI models and a lot of companies which are trying to solve for supply chain efficiency with AI. um, the only thing is that until unless the data privacy security is not covered, at the end of the day, it still puts the whole supply chain at risk. And once it goes down, it's massive overhead created versus how it was running earlier. So that's where some of the high impact use cases lies, and Agent Stack is working on with customers. At the end of the day, the underlying layer is first still that you get the data. Second is you secure the data, make the data visible, and then thirdly, how do you actually prioritize the risk level? So there are a lot of tools in the market, um, a lot of vendors who are selling cybersecurity, but nobody is able to classify the risk well. So there are a lot of threats and incidents that gets flagged, but actionable intelligence is missing, which is out of these incidents or risks, what is the high risk that has a high impact on business outcome, which should be looked up by C level. That's where the consulting comes in, and that's where the experts who understand both business as well as cybersecurity or data risk, um, the highest value, which is how do you categorize all the risk, and then just flag the highest one. So that's across the board, and that's again where the team comes in, which comes with a prior experience at S&P Global, cybersecurity companies. Like I've worked at Cloudflare, but a lot of people have worked at Zscaler and CrowdStrike and others, but have also worked inside businesses like I did G and others, combining all that knowledge into prioritizing risk and flagging it, and basically making sure that those are being covered, which can highly impact sustainability, if done well. Having said that, it's still a long way to go and actually prove this in action at a use case level. It's already in a lot of places and in Fortune 100 companies, but scaling it across the supply chain of the largest conglomerates, which ranges to thousands of suppliers, is where the goal is to achieve both AI driven sustainability as well as cybersecurity, to reduce downtime, to reduce emissions, to reduce the risk on threat levels. So that's a little bit about it. AI is heavily involved into all the solutions that we are working with, as well as the consulting part. So the consulting makes sure that every intelligence is actionable and quantified and relevant for business. The solutions are as much driven by AI as it can. For example, for SOC, or user access, make it as easy to use as possible for any level in the company, so that the manual work is automated. There is human element, which is checking every high impact or high risk alerts and making sure that they're making the right decision. So human and AI is where the core of the fundamentals of all solutions and consulting sits. um, it's empowering. AI is definitely increasing the threats, that's for sure, but it's also automating almost 60-70% of the work that is being done in the company manually today. So that has a very high impact on um, most of the organizations that struggle with security workforce in the first place. So especially in industrial organizations, it's very tough to find cybersecurity talent, which is where AI is helping heavily. From agent stack side, we have industry domain experts. They go in, the team works dedicatedly with the customers, make sure that data governance is covered. In AI transformation, the first step is security assessment and data governance assessment, which can take up to 6 to 8 weeks to make sure that the whole infrastructure, network, and the team understands the risk and has a readiness for AI. Once that is covered, then you go into AI use cases, and most of the AI technologies that we are working with are driving significant efficiency in the supply chain. So I'll pause there. I have talked quite a bit. Um, I would like to ask if there are any questions, anything to cover. Sorry, Melinda, are you speaking or can you message me?
That was very informative session. We gained a lot of knowledge from you. We have a few questions from our audience. I would like to ask you one of them. If your professionals entering tech today could master just one mindset, what should it be?
Curiosity to learn um, the newest tech, but also its impact on business. So every day I meet a lot of young folks because we have this young talent program and interns that came in. They're super excited about technology, but they forget that they have to actually implement it in business and deliver an outcome. So many times people are just in the loop of building technology. And then I ask them, okay, where did you implement them? And they're like, nowhere. So the customer never adopted that technology, which is the most important part, that any technology that you're working on, can the customer actually buy it? So where we start is we do not build anything unless customer says that this is a problem. So once the problem is there, then you take it. And of course, there are like always unresolved problems, which are massive.
Okay, thank you. Have one more question. What was the biggest challenge you faced while building agent stack from an idea into company?
That's a good question. So, I've taken 3 breaks in my career to start company. Never wanted to join job in the first place when I joined McKinsey. Every time my blocker was that I wanted to build something big. So I had this big vision, which should be global, it should have big impact, and I could never find the right person to get started, or the right idea to get started. So 3 breaks taken. This time it was the fourth one when big. So I left with a lot of customers in hand who had problems, and those problems were not getting solved from my prior company. So that was my confidence that, okay, now I have the revenue and the customers, who have the problem. Um, However, when I look back in the last 1 year, that's great to have. The biggest challenge has been that I again started with a very big vision, and to bring that vision into execution, there's a lot of alignment that needs to happen between the teams, because consulting, I mean, McKinsey, it has taken 100 years for McKinsey to shape up as McKinsey. When we joined in, the structure, when I joined in, or even my last job, the structure was very different. There are titles, and then there is career path, certain skills that you put together. The way I envisioned, and we are, still trying to put that thing in, is that nobody has a title, nobody reports to anyone, but still everybody works in collaboration, still in a group of 5 is an ideal size, because people have different skill set to actually solve a complex problem. So having that structure, still solving a tough problem for customer, which needs alignment. And secondly, we are a remote team, and I hired the team very, very fast across the world. So Africa, Europe, all countries in Asia, and that introduce the challenge of how do you communicate, because the team is very sharp and they want to work, but they don't necessarily want to talk to each other and spend time on talking. So communication has been a big problem, being a remote first company and trying to solve tougher challenges with customers. But we are evolving and we are learning. And the good part is that I'm now working with a lot of founders in Singapore itself who are exactly addressing each of these problems. So one guy is just building for structure. What should be the structure of an org so that it can still scale to, thousands and millions and not break, or have the internal politics which slows down the companies. And then somebody's working on how to solve the communication. So there is AI coming into everything, which is the good part. And we are still trialing.
I have a few more questions. I would like to ask one more. If you could redesign the future of technology leadership, what it would look like?
Well, so, I hate reporting to anyone. But like that's what been all the careers. So in my view, like nobody should be answerable to a person. Everybody should be answerable to solving a problem to the customer and driving an outcome. Um, so future of leadership is, first you are solving meaningful problems, and utilizing your potential, maximizing your potential for it. Secondly, the leaders need to always build the young talent. So the future of technology and the leadership is how do you build the right talent, um, which is more aware of what technology is being used, where it's going, and can build talent. At the end of the day, the future is about talent and skills. So how do you continue to build right skills, continue to learn new things? The best leaders will always mentor and continue to build the team, and that's that I see. So I'm very optimistic in general, and the future of tech leadership, what I see is that they would be very curious on every good problem that can be solved with tech, but also building the talent and skills to scale it fast.
Thank you for answering all the questions. We have few more questions from our audience.
Yeah, sure.
We will share it to your email. You can answer there.
Okay, fine. If the
Thank,
time is over, happy to answer there.
thank you. Please stay on the backstage and join our next sessions.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.